All right, folks, this is Chuck, and I'm looking at the grass down there by Lettsworth and LATN. So let's see what the grass looks like when I zoom it back out a little bit. Anyway, there's a plot of dirt down there, and we're going to put a tower on it, okay? And so one of the things we want to do to make that tower is you're going to want to cut a hole in it, and that's 15.5-foot square hole. All right, so that's no big deal, right? So, and most of that dirt will go right back in there. Okay, so we're going to do the excavation first, and then the first thing that goes in there is a rebar mat, a mat of rebar. And so let me see if I can show you the rebar here. Well, I should have been able to show you the rebar here. Just bear with me just a second. I don't know why it's not showing. Hide transparency. I didn't suppress it. So anyhow, oh, here we go. Ah, there we go. Show components. We're going to put a mat of rebar down in the bottom of this thing, okay? And so I even put a little bit of rust there on the rebar for you. Let me turn off the dirt so we can see what that really looks like down in there. I should be able to hide the dirt. And now we're looking at just the rebar. Okay, so that's 16 across horizontal and 16 vertical, and then another layer of 16 and 16. So a total of 64 pieces of rebar that are, I believe they're 15 feet long. Measure it real quick here. Well, that's showing the diameter. They're number 6 rebars, which is 3/4 of an inch. I think they're 15 feet long. Anyway, I can get a complete bill of materials here. After the rebar is built, then we're going to put into that rebar some vertical assemblies to show. Let's see if I can show those. Show components. There we go. That's what a vertical assembly looks like, and it's nothing more than some rebar that's been bent, and then it's stuck down in there, and you use like baling wire basically, and some safety wire pliers if you've got them. And we can get this rebar, all these J bars and these hoops that go around it, we can get those delivered to the site already made by a rebar company. Okay, so you space this rebar off the bottom of the dirt with some bricks or some vertical rebar driven into the ground with some short stakes. I prefer just to use some bricks myself. It needs to be about 2 to 3 inches off the bottom of the dirt, and then you put the 2 layers in there, and you can separate them with stakes of rebar again, or there's a number of ways to separate them. I don't like to have any wood embedded in the concrete, so we can get a whole bunch of vertical stakes if we want to do it that way. Matt's an expert at all this stuff, so he'll be advising us on how to do all this stuff. Now let's see if I can figure out how to turn the other vertical assemblies on. There we go. Well, I found them. Let's turn them on. Show component. Show component. Should all be on now. There they are. Okay, we're going to have 3 of those things sticking up through there. So see, they're sitting on that bottom mat, which is sitting on some bricks. So see, that's not so difficult to do, is it? And getting the things all measured out and spaced there just right, that's kind of critical. But the real critical part's coming up here. And it's the only thing that really has to be right in all of this. So let's see where it is. Here we go. The anchor bolts. Now those anchor bolts will be coming from the tower supplier, okay? And these plates should also be coming from the tower supplier. And the important thing, there's 2 or 3 things that's just critical here, is making sure obviously that they're all level. but this spacing between them, okay, getting them just dead on exact spacing, and getting them rotated dead on exact rotation is something that has to be. If it isn't right, the tower is just not going to fit, because the tower legs presume these holes will be where they want them to be. Now you notice these 4 holes here are kind of oriented horizontal and vertical, but these ones down in the corner, they're all rotated to the left or to the right 15 degrees. And so if you look like you drew a line through, you know, the horizontal and vertical portions of it, I don't know, straight from the center out, splitting between those 2 bolts, heads right for the center. But not to worry, we have dimensions. We have dimensions between this bolt, if you can see it, hopefully it's showing up on the video okay, and this bolt. The center to center distances of this bolt to this bolt, and this bolt up here to this bolt, I think it's like 10 and 7/16 or something like that. So as long as we get the center to center of these templates, they call these bolt templates, exactly dead on, and then we get these bolts, these particular 2, 4, 6 bolts all spaced from each other dead on, that's the critical thing. And I can make another template to double check the rotation. Sometimes when I do these towers, I actually make a larger template here, and I actually have some bolts in it, so I can bolt a 2x4 and make some 2x4s that go between these. Or I have in some cases done angle iron or steel tubing, and so that's called a full-size template. And if you do a full-size template, there's absolutely no way you can go wrong with the spacing. You can go wrong with elevations and all that other stuff, but you can't go wrong with the spacing. And then once we get that all wired up and in place, you got to do 2 pours here. Okay, the first pour is the bottom, and you'll pour that about 1.5 feet thick, I think it is, and that needs to set up for a day or so. It needs to set up, basically. It needs to set up firm enough that you can walk on it and so forth. And let's see if I can. Then we drop a cardboard tube down over the top of those vertical cages, called a sonotube. And then the second pour is filling those piers up. And you don't want to fill them up. There's a spec there on how close that top of that concrete can get to the bottom of that nut. Now it's really, really super important that you rub grease all over this stuff, and then you tape it up, and you somehow keep concrete from touching any of these bolts, because let me tell you what, it will stick like super glue. And there's been more than one time where I've had to take a center punch, and sit there in those threads and just chip it out, because you can't use a die on it or anything. You can't use a wire brush. You think, oh, I'll just wire brush that concrete. No, it does some kind of molecular bond. You might as well have welded on those darn threads. But then, you know, once that's all done, and then we'll go right in here and we will fill it full of dirt. And most of that dirt will go back in that hole. Let's see if I can turn the last little bit on here. I don't know where it is. Is that it? No. Anyhow, that's all there is to it. Simple, right? It's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. And most of that dirt, like I said, these things stick up out of the hole a bit, and so you kind of compact that dirt back in there, and you can kind of mound it up here. And then once we're done, we'll drive some ground rods. We'll dig a ditch about 1 foot deep around the perimeter. We'll drive some ground rods in it. We'll CAD weld them all, and then we'll have that ring, a halo ring, a wire going to each one of the tower legs, and that will be our tower. Our tower grounding. So I don't know why I can't put the plug back in. I was going to try to put that dirt plug back in the hole there and see if the piers would stick through the stick up through, but for whatever reason it's not doing it. So that's it. That's all I got there. Hopefully the audio is good enough to not make it a strain to listen to.